Ever wondered why adult films look so smooth, flawless, almost too good to be true? Behind the lights and the camera lies an industry built on tricks and illusion secrets they don't want you to know. These hidden truths are quietly distorting expectations, leaving many people trapped in shame and self-doubt. Stay with us until the very end of this video, and you'll uncover how this so-called smokeless industry really works and why it should never define your reality in the bedroom. Before we dive into the hidden truths of the adult film industry, I invite you to take a moment of pause. Let's open ourselves to healthier, more grounded approaches to sexuality, ways that bring connection, joy, and growth, instead of chasing illusions on a screen. First, a common misconception about premature ejaculation. One of the most widespread misconceptions surrounding premature ejaculation is the belief that contracting the pelvic floor muscles, commonly known as performing Kegel exercises, can help men hold back and extend their sexual performance. On the surface, this idea may sound reasonable, since the pelvic floor does play a role in urinary control and the reflex of ejaculation. However, research on the sexual response cycle reveals the opposite effect. When the body is tense, especially in the pelvic region, the sympathetic nervous system receives a signal of strain. Rather than slowing things down, this physiological response accelerates the arousal curve, pushing men more quickly toward the point of no return. As a result, tightening these muscles does not enhance control, but paradoxically brings ejaculation even sooner. Adding to the confusion, many individuals experiment with a practice known as edging, deliberately stopping or holding back when orgasm feels imminent, then starting again in hopes of prolonging the experience. In theory, when applied correctly and trained over time, this method can have benefits. But in reality, excessive force or repeated attempts to abruptly interrupt arousal by tensing the body often backfire. Many men report a sharp, painful sensation when ejaculation finally occurs, caused by pressure building up in the prostate and seminal ducts without being released in a natural rhythm. More concerning is the long-term misuse of pelvic floor contractions. Over time, repeatedly straining these muscles in the wrong way may lead to unwanted complications. Some men develop urinary difficulties, such as incomplete emptying of the bladder or a persistent sense of pelvic tightness. Others notice mild digestive discomfort due to imbalances between the pelvic and abdominal musculature. These are not merely short-term inconveniences. They carry the potential to impact reproductive health and sexual function in the long run. For these reasons, relying on clenching or suppressing techniques is neither sustainable nor safe. The healthier and more effective path lies in developing awareness of the body, mastering the breath, and cultivating the ability to release tension at the right moment. When men learn to listen to their arousal signals, soften instead of squeeze, and regulate excitement through mindful breathing, they gain real control over their sexual experience scientifically, sustainably, and fully. Second, the 5-step method, breathing as the foundation. On the journey to mastering the body and overcoming premature ejaculation, breath stands as the unshakable foundation. More than just the flow of oxygen that sustains every cell, breathing is the master key that unlocks control over the nervous system, the heartbeat, tension, and even the rise of sexual pleasure itself. The 5-step method built upon breathing is not a quick trick, but a disciplined scientific practice that empowers men to command their rhythm, deepen their connection, and elevate intimacy to an entirely new level. Step 1. Slow, deep breathing. Begin with 5 to 7 cycles of inhaling deeply through the nose and exhaling slowly through the mouth. Each breath is a signal to the body to return to balance. The parasympathetic nervous system awakens, the heart rate slows, tension dissolves, and the arousal curve naturally steadies. Step 2. Anal breath. As you inhale, engage in a subtle, almost imperceptible motion, as if gently bearing down without strain or force. On the exhale, release completely, allowing the pelvic floor to soften. Within just a few breaths, pressure subsides, arousal cools, and the body steps back from the brink of losing control. Step 3. Recognize the body's signals. Breathing now becomes more than technique, it is radar. A racing heartbeat, pelvic tightness, the sudden surge of climax approaching too quickly, these are signals. By recognizing them early, you can redirect with breath rather than being swept away. Step 4. Synchronize breath with movement. In moments of rapid motion, let breath conduct the rhythm. Deep, slow breaths calm the pace when things accelerate, while elongated inhalations and exhalations maintain balance when you wish to slow down. Breath becomes the lever, allowing you to raise or lower arousal at will. Step 5. Relax the whole body. The final step is surrender. Soften the shoulders, chest, abdomen, and especially the pelvic region. When the body is no longer rigid, pleasure is no longer compressed into a single point, but spreads in waves through the entire being. This is the transformation from a frantic sprint into a profound, full-bodied experience of intimacy. The 5-step method is not about clenching or holding back. It is about refinement and mastery. With consistent practice, men gain not only control over ejaculation, but also the ability to turn each breath into a bridge, connecting with themselves and with their partner in a way that is powerful, grounded, and deeply human. Third, separating arousal from anxiety. One of the greatest obstacles to mastering control and experiencing fulfilling intimacy lies in the confusion between arousal and anxiety. These two states often rise together, yet they are fundamentally different in nature. Arousal is positive energy, propelling the body closer to pleasure and climax. Anxiety, on the other hand, is a warning signal, activating the sympathetic nervous system and driving the body into tension. When both curves rise too high, for example, when arousal climbs beyond 5 out of 10, while anxiety also surges, the body shifts abruptly into fight or flight mode. At that point, control slips away, pleasure diminishes, and ejaculation occurs prematurely, often against one's will. The danger is that many men fail to distinguish between the two. They feel the heart racing, the breath quickening, the muscles tightening, and assume it is all part of heightened pleasure. In reality, much of it is hidden anxiety masquerading as arousal. This confusion is precisely what sweeps them past the point of control. The goal of training, therefore, is not to eradicate anxiety completely. Such a task would be impossible. Instead, men must learn to recognize and separate these two curves. Arousal manifests as warmth, expansion, and waves of pleasurable energy spreading through the body. Anxiety, by contrast, contracts. It feels cold, tight, rigid. By learning to tell them apart, a man gains the power to use breath, relaxation, and awareness to bring anxiety down while keeping arousal at a sustainable level. This skill becomes the key to true mastery, ensuring that anxiety does not hijack arousal, but rather allowing the two to remain distinct. In this balance, intimacy is no longer a desperate struggle against pressure, but a conscious embodied experience, profound, steady, and deeply satisfying. Fourth, the skill of surfing the sweet spot. In the realm of intimacy, there comes a decisive moment. Arousal surges, climax feels imminent, and the body teeters on the edge of the point of no return. For most men, this is the moment control slips away. The experience ends too soon, and deeper pleasure is lost. But for those who have trained, this edge is not the end, it is the gateway to mastery. This is where the art of surfing the sweet spot begins. The sweet spot is that delicate zone between fullness and loss of control, a threshold where even a single intentional breath can reshape the entire experience. As the wave of tension rises, instead of panicking or tightening the body, the skilled practitioner turns to the anal breath, a gentle inhale followed by a complete release on the exhale. Within just a few cycles, arousal drops by several degrees, creating space to continue without spilling over. The brilliance of this skill lies in what it does not demand. You do not have to stop altogether, nor do you need to disconnect from your partner. Instead, you remain engaged, maintaining intimacy and rhythm, while your breath becomes the regulator that keeps you in command. In this balance, pleasure no longer races upward like a steep cliff, but unfolds in rolling waves, each crest richer and more expansive than the last. Surfing the sweet spot is not merely a technique, it is an art form. It requires attentiveness, patience, and presence. With practice, a man no longer feels ruled by his sexuality. He becomes the conductor of his own pleasure. And in that mastery, both partners are carried into a deeper, slower, more profound experience, where orgasm is no longer a hurried finish line, but a journey to be savored together. Fifth, practice alone first. No skill is ever mastered without practice. The art of controlling ejaculation and sustaining pleasure is no exception. It cannot be left to chance in the heat of intimacy. It must be cultivated deliberately, and the safest, most effective training ground is when a man chooses to practice alone. During self-pleasure, he can give undivided attention to the subtle shifts within his body. When does the heartbeat begin to quicken? How does the pelvic floor tighten? At what pace does arousal climb? This awareness transforms self-stimulation into a laboratory of learning. Here, each breath becomes an experiment, each pause an opportunity to test control, each sensation a lesson in mastery. Masturbation, approached with intention, is no longer a mere habit, but a disciplined rehearsal for conscious intimacy. For men who have struggled with premature ejaculation for years, or who carry a high burden of sexual anxiety, this process often requires a longer journey. Experts suggest that it may take 6 to 12 months of consistent training to fully separate the twin curves of arousal and anxiety. This is not wasted time. It is the building of a foundation. Just as muscles grow only through steady repetition, the neuromuscular pathways of sexual control must be strengthened through patience, persistence, and discipline. The essential ingredient here is patience. Many fall into the trap of expecting instant results, then abandon the practice when progress feels slow. But every attempt, whether successful or not, ingrains awareness, strengthens resilience, and builds confidence. Each session is another step toward mastery. Over time, men not only gain the ability to extend and regulate their arousal, but also discover a deeper sense of connection with their own bodies. Practicing alone, therefore, is not meaningless repetition. It is preparation, transformation, and empowerment. It is the deliberate step that turns sex from a passive reflex into an active art, one where control, presence, and fulfillment are no longer distant ideals, but lived realities. Sixth, ineffective methods. In the quest to control ejaculation, many men turn to quick fixes such as the stop-start technique or distracting themselves by thinking about something else. At first glance, these methods seem simple and convenient. Yet in reality, they are not only ineffective but can also create deeper problems over time. The stop-start technique advises men to halt stimulation the moment they feel close to climax, wait until arousal subsides, and then resume. The flaw lies in its abrupt interruption of the natural flow of pleasure. Instead of being immersed in intimacy, men become hyper-vigilant, monitoring every subtle change in their body with anxiety. Will I lose control this time? This constant tension keeps the sympathetic nervous system on high alert, ironically making premature ejaculation even more likely. The method of thinking about something else fares no better. By forcing the mind to focus on non-sexual thoughts, work, numbers, mundane images, a man may briefly blunt arousal, but in doing so, he severs the vital connection with his body and with his partner. Sexuality is meant to be a whole-body, whole-mind experience. When the mind is pulled away from the present moment, pleasure dulls, intimacy fades, and the bond between partners begins to weaken. Both of these approaches share a common flaw. They are rooted in avoidance rather than mastery. They teach men to flee from arousal instead of learning how to regulate and embrace it. This is why techniques based on breath, relaxation, and surfing the sweet spot are far superior. They do not distance a man from his pleasure, they empower him to inhabit it fully, with awareness and control. True mastery does not come from running away from pleasure. It comes from meeting it head-on, understanding its signals, and harmonizing with its rhythm. Only then does sex transform from a tense struggle against one's own body into an experience that is both powerful and profoundly fulfilling. 7th, communication during intimacy. One of the most decisive factors in the quality of sexual experience is not only technique or stamina, but the ability to communicate with your partner. Too often, couples avoid direct communication out of shyness, fear of judgment, or the worry that it will ruin the mood. Yet silence creates distance. Without words, desires remain hidden, and true fulfillment becomes harder to reach. The key lies in how questions are asked. Many men and women fall back on vague phrases like, "Do you like this?" or "Am I doing okay?" While well-intentioned, such questions are often unhelpful. They put pressure on the partner to come up with a polite or diplomatic response, and rarely invite honest, actionable feedback. The result is hesitation, uncertainty, and a missed opportunity for deeper pleasure. The solution is to offer clear and specific choices. Instead of asking in the abstract, guide with concrete options. Do you want me to go faster or slower? Would you like it stronger or softer? These simple, direct questions empower your partner to respond easily and openly. At the same time, they transform communication into an act of leadership, where both partners actively shape the experience together. Beyond practicality, this style of communication strengthens emotional connection. It signals care and attentiveness. I want to give you what feels best. With this foundation of trust and responsiveness, sex transcends the physical act, becoming a harmony of body, mind, and emotion. In short, communication is not a distraction from intimacy. It is the catalyst that elevates it. Through clear, confident, and compassionate dialogue, men can become steady guides, and both partners can discover joy not only in pleasure, but in the resonance and closeness that endure long after the moment ends. 8th, distinguishing ejaculation from orgasm. In common perception, ejaculation and orgasm are often seen as one and the same, occurring simultaneously, carrying identical meaning. Yet in the science of sexuality, these two phenomena are fundamentally distinct. Understanding this difference is the key to recognizing why so many men release, but do not truly feel satisfied. Ejaculation is, at its core, a biological reflex. When arousal reaches a certain threshold, the sympathetic nervous system triggers a chain of muscular contractions in the seminal ducts, prostate, and urethra to expel semen. This is a mechanical event nearly impossible to reverse once initiated. It is like a switch, hardwired to ensure reproduction, efficient but limited in scope. Orgasm, on the other hand, is a whole-body, whole-mind experience. It extends beyond the genitals, coursing through the central nervous system, the cardiovascular system, the breath, the emotions, and even the sense of connection with one's partner. A true orgasm feels like waves of release, rippling throughout the body, leaving behind not only relief, but also profound joy and expansion. It is biological, yes, but also deeply psychological and relational. The reality for many men, especially those who struggle with premature ejaculation, is that they often experience ejaculation without orgasm. They release quickly, but what follows is not bliss, but emptiness, a sense of letdown, frustration, or disappointment. This is the hallmark of a reflex, completed without the nervous system or emotions ever reaching the full state of climax. Recognizing this distinction changes the entire approach to sexual mastery. The goal is not merely to delay ejaculation, but to cultivate true orgasm, to use breath, relaxation, communication, and presence to nurture a deeper experience. When men learn to sustain arousal while reducing anxiety, to soften instead of tighten, to stay fully present rather than rushing toward release, they open the door to orgasms that are richer, longer, and more fulfilling. Sex then ceases to be a race ending in a fleeting reflex. It becomes a journey, one of full-bodied ecstasy, shared intimacy, and lasting connection. Ninth, sexless or low-sex marriages. In modern sociology and sexology, one reality that raises deep concern is the rise of sexless or low-sex marriages. Studies reveal that as many as 15–20% of couples fall into this category. It is not defined by a few weeks or months of reduced intimacy, but by a clear threshold: no sexual activity for over 1 year, or fewer than 10 encounters in a year. The causes behind this phenomenon are diverse and complex. Lingering resentments, left unspoken, slowly erode intimacy. The relentless stress of work, financial burdens, and family responsibilities drain the energy required for connection. On the biological side, declining hormones, sexual dysfunctions, or mental health challenges can also push a marriage into this barren state. What makes the situation more alarming is the belief many couples adopt that dwindling passion after marriage is simply normal. Yet science shows otherwise. Prolonged absence of physical intimacy can weaken marital satisfaction, widen emotional distance, and even pave the way for infidelity or separation. The path to healing does not lie in a single conversation, but in ongoing, honest dialogue. Couples must dare to voice their desires, fears, and disappointments openly, without judgment. Alongside this comes the work of addressing root causes, resolving resentments, easing stress, rebalancing work and personal life, checking and adjusting hormone levels, or seeking treatment for sexual dysfunctions. In many cases, the guidance of a therapist or sexologist becomes an invaluable ally. Above all, a sexless marriage is not the final chapter. Rather, it is a powerful signal that the relationship needs care, renewal, and rekindling. When two partners choose to face the issue together and commit to finding solutions, the flame that seemed extinguished can reignite, burning not only with renewed passion, but with deeper understanding and stronger connection than before. 10th, the impact of pornography, what the adult industry doesn't want you to know. One of the greatest truths the adult film industry doesn't want you to know is this: almost everything you see on screen is staged, edited, and exaggerated a performance, not reality. Yet for many who grow up watching it, porn becomes the silent standard by which they measure real sex. First, porn scenes are carefully crafted to appear smooth and flawless. Cameras, lighting, angles, and editing erase the pauses, awkwardness, and imperfections that naturally occur in real intimacy. Audiences absorb these curated images as normal, and then compare their own experiences against them, often leading to illusion, shame, and self-doubt. Second, the male-to-female ratio in the industry is wildly unbalanced, roughly 7 men for every 300 women. This imbalance creates fierce competition among male performers, forcing them to go to extremes just to prove themselves. In turn, it pushes audiences toward false expectations, convincing them that men must be superhuman in stamina and performance to be considered normal. These distorted standards fuel anxiety and inadequacy in countless men. And finally, a hidden truth. Many male actors rely on drugs or medical interventions to maintain erections and prolong performance. The industry keeps this secret tightly guarded because revealing it would shatter the illusion of superhuman ability it sells to the audience. Viewers, left unaware, continue comparing themselves to a fantasy that no real body could sustain. In the end, pornography is not merely entertainment. It is an illusion factory. And those illusions are exactly what the adult film industry doesn't want you to know. Only by recognizing this truth can we free ourselves from the chains of false expectations and reclaim authentic sexuality where connection, trust, and natural pleasure hold far more value than fabricated perfection. Finally, the impact on viewers. The deepest impact of pornography is not found in its staged scenes, but in the way it shapes the perceptions and psychology of its viewers. Over time, constant exposure to scripted and edited images conditions people to believe in a sexual illusion that intimacy must be flawless, seamless, and endless, just like in the films. This illusion becomes an invisible trap. In real life, where bodies have limits, where awkward pauses and imperfections are natural, viewers begin to compare and feel disappointed. They measure their own bodies against the actors, their performance against a fabricated script, and soon they are left with shame and inadequacy when reality does not match the screen. Instead of enjoying genuine connection with a partner, their minds are clouded by the question, "Am I good enough?" The result is a steady erosion of self-confidence. At first, it may show up as fleeting anxiety, but with time it grows into a heavy psychological burden. Men may enter intimacy with fear of failure rather than desire for experience. Women may feel their bodies are not ideal, leading them to withdraw from closeness. Gradually, the real sex life suffers sometimes to the point of disappearing altogether. What makes this most dangerous is that viewers rarely realize they are being manipulated. Pornography is designed to sell illusions, and the more people believe them, the more profit the industry makes. But the price paid by the audience is steep, a loss of trust in their own bodies, in their confidence, and in the natural joy of intimacy. That is why recognizing the gap between fantasy and reality is the first step toward freedom. Only by breaking free from these illusions can we return to authentic sexuality, where honesty, connection, and natural pleasure mean far more than any perfect performance ever shown on a screen. Ladies and gentlemen, sex is not a race against time, nor the flawless spectacle shown on a screen. It is a journey of discovery, where breath, presence, understanding, and connection form the true foundation. By breaking free from illusion, practicing patience, and embracing honest communication, we can transform sex from a burden into an art authentic, liberating, and profoundly fulfilling. Thank you for listening until the very end. If today's story has gently stirred your heart, whether through an old memory, a present feeling, or something never spoken into words, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Intimate wisdom is where we come together to touch the hidden corners of love, affection, and sexuality, things that may seem private, yet are in fact the very core of happiness. I wish you to always love deeply, live truthfully, and find yourself in every glance, every touch, and every trembling heartbeat. Affectionate greetings.